If you're a regular to my channel, then you'll know that I've had a bit of a rocky history with Christian films. For those who aren't regulars to my channel, I am a Christian. But yeah, like I say, I haven't warmed particularly well to films like God's Not Dead, which, yeah, I mean, I voted that my worst film of that year. And my problem with Christian films tends to be that I feel like I'm being preached to all the time, rather than being told, say, a parable in which, you know, you have a story and you have to kind of work it out for yourself. You have to try and wrestle with your own feelings about it. So to me, that's the fundamental problem usually with Christian films, which kind of puts me off. So I wasn't quite excited about going to see The Shack, which I'm here to review. It's based on a book by a guy called William P. Young, and yeah, it's been made into a film, The Shack, and I've got to say, I really liked it a lot. Now, I don't think it's perfect. I think it does suffer from some, and I mean only some, of the issues that Christian films regularly suffer from, but nowhere near to the level of something like God's Not Dead. Now, the primary reason that I think I liked this film so much is the way that it focuses on this one character, this main character played by Sam Worthington, and just the pain that he goes through and how he deals with, and the questions that raises about his faith and about his relationship with God. Now, there are a lot of questions asked in this film, and I don't think with all of them we always get truly satisfying answers, or at least not if you're coming to this as maybe a non-believer or as someone who is very new to a faith. I think there are times when some of the answers seem a little unsatisfactory, but for the most part, the larger themes, so to speak, I think are played with, are handled with really nicely, and they don't shy away from some of the more harder elements of life. You know, this is about a guy who loses his daughter to a serial killer. You know, someone abducts his daughter and kills her, and that's hard stuff. You know, that's harsh material. And if this were a typical Hollywood movie, I think the thriller element of that would really get amped up, and I'm not so sure that's a good thing. But here, I feel like it's dealt with in a very sensitive manner, but also in a very touching manner. There were a couple of times in this film when I genuinely got emotional. And I think a lot of that is down to the writing, but a lot of it also is down to the performances, particularly that central performance by Sam Worthington. Again, a guy that I'm going to go to bat for, because I think this guy doesn't get enough credit in Hollywood. Sam Worthington's one of those actors who, when he kind of first came out, he was one of them that the studios seemed to be trying to push on us as the next big thing. And I think that got a lot of people's backs up against the wall with regards to him. And then the mud that was kind of thrown has kind of stuck. But once you push that all aside, I do actually think this guy is a decent actor. There's quite a few films I've seen him in where I've really enjoyed his performances. But here, I think he does something quite special, I personally, I think, with the performance. And I found what he did to be really touching, and it genuinely moved me. I think also the director, Stuart Hazeldine, handles the material really well. This has a much bigger budget than we're used to seeing from the likes of God's Not Dead, or even anything by the Kendrick brothers. You know, I think films like Fireproof and Courageous. Again, those guys, they do what they do, I guess, quite well. I can see they've got talent, but they tend to over-egg things quite a bit. They tend to hammer you over the head with the message, and I feel like here that's not done as much. There's no mistaking this is a Christian film. There's no mistaking, you know, what it's talking about and what it's trying to impart upon you. But I feel like it's handled much better and much more sensitively. Now, the story follows, as I say, this man whose daughter has been kidnapped and killed. And he receives a letter from, well, it looks as though it's from God. To ask him, it's an invitation basically, to come to the shack, this abandoned shack where his daughter was found, or at least the remnants of her were found, her clothing, her bloodstained clothing, to come there and meet with God. This invitation appears to be from God himself, or in the case of this film, herself, as God is represented by Octavia Spencer, who I think delivers quite an understated performance for her. You know, we're used to seeing her playing these larger-than-life, kind of powerful, motherly figures, and she kind of does that here, but she dials it down a bit, which I like. I really like her in this film. But we also get the other characters of the Trinity. So we get Jesus and we get the Holy Spirit portrayed in these, you know, so we've got all three of these characters, the three characteristics that make up the Holy Trinity. So this main character, Mac, played by Sam Worthington, goes to this shack, not really knowing what he's going to find. You know, he has suspicions that it may be the killer himself, kind of taunting him, mocking him. So he goes there with a gun, expecting to dish out some justice. So yeah, what we get in the aftermath of all this, with Mac meeting up with Father, Son and the Holy Spirit, is a journey in which he goes through all his pain, deals with his pain, and tries to come to a place of forgiveness, which is really hard. You know, again, like I say, if this was a typical Hollywood movie, we're not about forgiveness. We're about justice. We're about finding the killer at the end and putting a bullet in his head. And that's the way a film like this would normally go. So I don't think that element is going to sit well with many people. I think a lot of people will stick with the reaction that Mac initially has in this film, which is that actually, you know what, this guy should pay. This guy should burn in hell. And if I get my chance, I'll put a bullet in his head. So I think the film, the story itself, does something quite hard, which is try and get this message of forgiveness across towards someone who has done, quite frankly, something we might consider to be the harshest of crimes, the most unforgivable of crimes. Like I say, it's not perfect. It does have those issues with certain questions not really having satisfying answers. And it also gets really cheesy in some places. A particular moment when Mac is running across a lake with Jesus. It's pushing it just a little bit. Like I say, cheese factor gets amped up now and again, which I kind of expect with most Christian films these days. But like I say, that stuff is fairly minimal. But the primary thing that really draws me into this film, that really got me, was that it moved me, which is what movies should do. First and foremost, they should make me feel something. And I think, being a father myself, I could really identify with this man, you know, seeing what he'd lost and how he was dealing with it. I think that's how I would deal with it. This isn't going to be for everyone. I know a lot of people are really adverse to faith-based films. They just don't want to deal with them, and that's fine. You know, we all have our taste, and that's usually me. You know, I'm a Christian, and I usually don't like Christian films. But this one got me. It did. It touched me. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Again, not a perfect film. It does have issues, but when a film moves me like this, that's what I want from cinema. So there you go. That's my review of The Shack. Please do comment below and let me know what you thought about it, if you've seen the film. And until next time, cracking.